Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Why, hello there. It's once again time to rewind and catch up with what's been going on in the world of Pantheon fandom, and most importantly, what's going on with the game's development. It's episode 124 this week, and we've got a recap of the October newsletter from VR to review and give our thoughts on. We've got an extended spotlight to see what the content the community has for us, and we meet our inaugural weekly keepers. We're watching, always watching, what VR's up to. So if your vision is a little fuzzy, let us help you bring it into focus. So join me, Theric, and my beholder of a co-host, Desrin, for this week's Rewind. So, should I be addressing you as Community Spotlight Superstar, Desrin, or how do you want to be addressed? What's the what's the title for you this week?
Beholder was pretty good. I've never been compared to such an exotic creature.
You're a beast. You're a beast in every respect.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you were featured on the Spotlight, and I was and really enjoyed reading that part of the newsletter this week. And just wanted to say congratulations. It's so nice to see you get to shine. I love it.
I mean, it's cool. I hope people enjoy it. I hope people get something out of it.
So humble.
Comes from the heart.
So humble. It did. It very much felt like it came from the heart. So you're doing good. You're doing okay.
Yep. As I was telling you before the show, I'm going to take my last COVID test to make sure it's all gone and get back to normal.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you. So yeah, no, it's been a busy week. I know we've both been playing a lot of Embers Adrift, and we're feeling that game for sure. And we were talking earlier today about like another, potentially another static group. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I had to roll another character. So like, yeah, I have now maxed out my character slots on Embers Adrift. I mean.
Yep, 3 characters, that's all you get. But it's like a little preview of when Pantheon's coming, right? What our lives are going to be like when Pantheon hits is like this constant desire to play and create new characters and have new groups and doing new things. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. The other thing that's fun is our adventuring party. So let's give them a shout out. We got, as always, Ziplocs on the Darkmoor Rogue, got Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsasaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archai Summoner, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Acera Avienda on the Elf Ranger, Churro Dude on the Halfling Dire Lord, and Galarain Moonsong on the Elf Ranger. So always great to see that our crowd come around and support us and all that stuff that they do. And we're going to give back. It's time to do another giveaway, Desrin.
Woohoo! Giveaway time!
Woohoo! As always, everybody's so generous with supporting the show, and we want to recycle that goodwill and give away some Pantheon pledges. So on next week's show, episode 125, we're going to be handing out a Black Rose pledge and 2 Watchers pledges. So it's the same as always. All you got to do is be here for the premiere next week, and then stick around during the show till the end of the show when we do the draw, and you could be the proud owner of one of those pledges.
Yeah,
so
which we should probably point out, in case people aren't familiar with the names. That's one $500 pledge, and 2 $50 pledges.
Yes, yeah. The 50s are the Watchers. So the thing with the Black Rose pledge too is that you can stack it. If you have a $250 pledge already, and you were to get this, you stack it up. Yep. Guess what?
You'd be a Scion. You'd be you're in the Scion. PA access. Yeah.
PA access via Scion of the Black Rose pledge. So it's just something that's so fun to do, and I love to see people get these gifted and give these away. So as always, thank you everybody for supporting the show. It's because of your support we can do stuff like this. We've got our Pantheon. I knew I was going to make that mistake at some point. Linked in the description below if you want to join that and get your name read out on the show like you heard. We've also got the super chat function, and you can do that during the premiere or do a super thanks in the comments afterwards to get your name in the meticulously crafted banner that you'll see during the VR news and notes section. But as always, you know, you are all the reason we're here and we do this because we love to nerd out and get Pantheon with you So we're here for that. And cheers and thank you, everyone. So with that, Desrin, on with the show.
Let's get on with it.
This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. All right, so newsletter week. We are going to start by looking at the calendar for the month of November that they released as part of the newsletter. So you'll see that on your screen right now. As always, it's on Thursday, a Thursday of every week of the month of November, starting on November 3rd, when they're doing their VIP only event. That's Bring Out Your Devs. We're going to be getting to talk to Brett Knuckles.
Yeah.
And we saw some of his art with Sevil Manor when they did the showcase there. They have his nickname here. His screen name was Knock, which I didn't know. That's a new one, perhaps shorthand for Knuckles. Maybe sounds right.
Maybe, I don't know. It's a cool nickname though. Also, this is a first time for Brett, I think, to be introduced to the community. Brett's one of the, I guess I could still say, newer artists, right?
Yeah.
He's been on for a good while, but still like fairly new in the grand scheme of things. And also, I love how you helped yourself pronounce Sevil. It is
I'm very explicitly, lots of A's and L's in the notes, just to keep myself safe.
But yeah, it'll be cool to talk to Brett.
Yeah, we haven't heard from him. We haven't heard his voice, I don't think. So it'll be nice to talk to him. And like I said, Knock is a cool shorthand name. I mean, it sounds like knocking an arrow.
That's what I thought of too, yeah.
Right up my alley. Maybe he's a ranger. I mean, he sounds like a good person.
Be a great ranger name.
Speaking of the calendar, there's some nice artwork. And speaking of artwork on the calendar, I'm not sure if this is Brett's work or not. Kind of looks similar to the Sevil Manor artwork. So possibly.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's a great little observation. I only noticed that it's concept art and it's not like in-game stuff like we've been getting. So
yeah,
that's
I noticed that too. But and it's weird because I was a little bit unsure at the minute, because if you look at the cliffs behind the temple here, they're very like, they look like the in-game cliffs that we've seen. But it's definitely artwork. But yeah, I was trying to think like where this might be. It kind of looks like the Silent Plains shot that we saw. It doesn't have that sort of Aventur's Pass look that we've seen. Maybe is a different area, but who knows? Could be anything.
I don't know. I would throw a guess at Throne Fast, but maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you can support that with lore, then I'll give it to you. If you can tell me what this temple is, and I'll give it to you.
I was going to point to what was it, 2 streams back or so, 3 streams, where they did a bunch of concept art for the various starting locations that looked kind of similar to this. Maybe. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It does. Actually, it's like there's like a monk looking temple kind of thing in there. So maybe we'll see. And then on the 10th of November is the next developer live stream. And it says here that they're going to do a Q&A, a year in review Q&A with the devs. So we don't know who that is. Who could it be?
All of them. Literally all of them.
All the devs. All the devs. Every single one of them, maybe. Maybe it's similar to like last time. Remember they did that check-in with each department? I know people really liked that.
Yeah,
right?
I really loved that. And this is the kind of thing I'm hoping they continue to do. Like because let's be honest, we got some years to go, right? But I think this is just a really smart thing. I mentioned a while back, like I really like those. A lot of folks call them like a post-mortem, and like things like that. Kind of looking back and kind of taking in what did we learn and stuff like that. So yeah, doing something like this I think it's a pretty cool thing. We'll see who shows up. But I do hope that it's a kind of varied thing, like it's just kind of a little bit from each department. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. And like I said, they did that before, and get a little check-in from everybody here, from like Nefel about crafting, maybe hear from, maybe hear from JN, which would be great.
Maybe man, it's been too long.
It has been too long. We haven't talked to JN in a long time, so would love that. So that's and then on the 17th is Parting the Veil. That's November 17th, and drop in minus, it just says discussing design elements.
Extremely
so not
vague.
Yeah, not specific on this one. And then the 24th of November is the next newsletter. And there was a footnote to this calendar that says, I'm going to read a quote. It says, please note December's calendar will differ from our usual cadence due to holidays. More on this in the next newsletter.
Oh, that's a good call out. Yeah.
Yeah, they got to give people time off for the holidays and, get a little respite in or whatever the needs are. I guess that'll be, it is what it is. We'll see. All right, let's move on to the producer's letter. And before we get into the actual information, Desmond, can we just bask in the glory of this screenshot that they led with?
Oh my gosh, dude. This it kind of kills me just because like our lips are sealed, right? Like
you have no idea. Oh, you do know. You do know.
Oh, I know.
It was.
I'm in that
for
picture.
Me to write the notes. Yeah. Well, hey, that's a reveal. Your name's not on there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Look, the big part that we had a hard time not putting in the notes and saying was the name of this creature. But let's just leave it at that.
I was thinking the same thing. I almost just like jokingly threw it out there, but I think I'm going to be a good boy today.
It was hard to be good, but sometimes you got to be good. So, but let's just look at the picture. I mean, the lighting and just the way that it's sort of like framed and what a beautiful screenshot. I'm not often to over fawn about a screenshot, but this is pretty cool.
I see. It's not that impressive to me. That sounds so bad. But like one thing that I will point out, because this is still obviously this is PA stuff, so it's not finished, right? But you'll note the amount of players in the screenshot, and obviously some torches, right? And playing Embers lately.
It's a really good point. I know what you're going to say. It's a really good point.
Having a bunch of people with torches can have some adverse effects, and I appreciate that it is not out of control.
Yeah, no, right, for sure. It seems like a well managed lighting situation, and there's a lot of people in that shot. Like you said, there's hundreds of people in one spot, and
that's what I was like kind of afraid to mention, right? Because like. I'm glad you said it so that like I'm off the hook now. Because
well, I mean, you can count the people on the screen. I mean, we can really, if we want to be really super, detailed about, we could count the people on the screen. But there's a lot of people in one spot,
and you can imagine that the screenshot probably doesn't contain everyone.
Right. So, and we've heard about this in the VIP dev stream or in the dev stream from last week, or what was it, 2 weeks ago now, where they talked about this event. So, yeah. Very cool. Now,
take that as you may. I think it's kind of take that as you may and move on.
Move on. Yes. Anyway, they did talk about the next testing session. So this is important. I'm going to read the quote from them. It says, quote, speaking of future tests, the relative performance and stability of our October session has given us the assurances we needed that we can begin to conduct more frequent testing with less overhead. We hope to run the first of these ad hoc sessions in November, with an emphasis on combat, balance, and pacing. And we'll share more details about this and communication plans for ad hoc sessions going forward with our VIP community soon. So there's a couple things there. First of all, again, it's a teaser. It's not specific.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't want to make the same mistake we made last time. They're specifically saying they're going to announce to the VIPs, when this is happening. So don't expect to go broadly public about when the next these ad hoc sessions might be.
Right. And that's actually kind of one thing I was going to point out, because I'm not a fan of vague teasers. Like I will speak out every time. But I actually kind of like this one because, they didn't just say we're planning on doing tests more often, for the 7th time or whatever. But they said, hey, we're aiming for one in November, and probably more importantly, said who would be in the know, like you pointed out. I think that's actually a big deal. It kind of shows they're maybe learning a bit, so they're not just gonna say something is coming and set a bunch of expectations and then what did you call it last time? The whiffed on it, or they knocked it off, rolled off the tee or something like that? Yeah.
I think you put it well last time, because that is what happened. And we talked about this, and they're listening to the community, listening to some feedback. And I agree. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So again, VIPs will be the ones in the know about the test. So maybe not the public. I mean, of course they could still announce it if they want, but they said this is who's going to get it. But also, it still leaves that gigantic elephant in the room, which is this now delayed several times stream with Co-Carnage, which we again have to wonder, is this the same session as they're talking about here? So I don't know. It's better communication, but it's still missing a key thing that I think like everyone is wondering, right?
Yeah. Well, I was baffled why they didn't mention it in the newsletter. It seems like this is a big deal. This is probably their biggest, one of the most important moments for the entire development cycle when this Co-Carnage stream happens, because it's going to be it's going to be in a new world, in a new
I could not agree
environment,
more.
A new context. This is a massive, I mean, and that's probably why they're being very cautious with it. So they don't want to announce it. They don't want to make any, but they already kind of said it.
Yeah, I was about to say, they already announced it. Like, it's...
Yeah, and we're getting our information from Co-Carnage's Twitter feed a lot too, which is kind of it's not a problem, but it's not great. Like we should be getting it straight from them about what's happening with this.
Yeah,
so
even just saying like it's likely that the next session will be with Co-Carnage, even if it's not like a for sure. Like, I mean, they could just explain that, right? Like, we're planning on another session, in November. Depending on how everything lines up, that might also be the session that we do Co-Carnage, but it might not. I'd be like,
just acknowledge how excited everybody is to see Co-Carnage, right? Like acknowledge that excitement and validate people being like, did I miss it? What's happening?
Yeah, because at this point, people are starting to wonder, like, is the Co-Carnage even going to be like a PA session anymore? Or like, people are wondering that. So it's like, and that's only going to kind of stockpile and grow until they announce something official.
That's right. Yeah. And so the other part of this was the, a new sort of term for testing, the ad hoc sessions. So, what is ad hoc testing? And I had to turn to our friend Wikipedia for this because, I mean, I know the term ad hoc, like sort of makeshift or sort of like, reasonable facsimile or something along those lines. But when it comes to ad hoc testing, I actually looked it up. So according to Wikipedia, ad hoc testing is a term commonly used for planned software testing that is performed without initial test case documentation. However, ad hoc testing can also be applied to scientific research and quality control efforts. Ad hoc tests are useful for adding additional coincidence and resulting product or process, as well as quickly spotting important defects or inefficiencies. So, I mean, I could go on. There's more to it, and I'm not going to read the whole thing.
It's basically like, we're just testing because testing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's less directed, I think, is kind of the point.
Yeah. Very, very sort of scattershot, maybe, is a good way of sort of thinking about it. Like just throwing it out there and see what happens kind of thing. We'll see what it looks like when the time comes. But I mean, I'm excited for it. I want to do it. I want to be a part of it.
Oh, you bet.
Whatever it is.
You bet.
But it's interesting that they sort of are describing it this way.
So
we'll see what
I
it looks
will
like.
say that it is a really big deal that if they do this next session, I think they should note that a session happened, just because they've continuously said, we're going to do more testing. We're going to do more testing. We're going to do more testing. Finally, if they could just like prove that they are, that would be great.
Yeah. And there's a couple other things sort of a similar vein that I want to bring up too. So the next quote from the newsletter that I want to mention is talking about some of basically the highlights from the roadmap to alpha. They said, quote, October saw exciting developments on a number of key fronts: the completion of our revised Darkmer models, the beginnings of our swimming implementation and enhanced agro systems, the completion of our first in-house flora assets for Thronefast and its surrounding regions, the completion of improvements to our terrain rendering and biome generation systems, and improvements to how our assets are packaged and managed by the client. So the first one, I have a little confused. Their first in-house flora asset for Thronefast.
Yeah,
I feel like they've said this before. What am I missing here? What am I?
I didn't look it up, admittedly, but I thought it was already kind of like known that what they had right now was like the trees and the grass and stuff. Haven't they been saying that that's like a temporary thing?
Well, what they've been saying is that they've been improving it. Remember, we constantly, like, they're constantly showing, like, you know, it's been on the roadmap a bunch of times. Improvements to flora, you know, texture, improvements to, you know, natural vegetation look and feel.
See, I think that's talking about distribution and like systems, like the wind interacting with the asset, which isn't necessarily the asset, right?
That's not the asset itself. I understand. Yeah, I get that.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, in the comments, if you find when they were talking about like, this is, you know, like, our own in-house, you know, tree or whatever.
Well, the whole leaves and fronds thing. I mean, unless I'm recalling to a time before the refactoring, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But I just feel like this is something that they've sort of said before that, you know, we've already replaced these assets.
Yeah, so, definitely. If anyone can find that, I'm curious.
Mm-hmm. The other one was the Darkmer models. Boy, it's nice to hear that they're done. Would have been nice to see them in this newsletter. I think that would have been a nice sort of visual for everybody to, you know, feast their eyes on.
Yeah.
Maybe saving that. I don't know.
I kind of feel like either we're going to see that sometime in the next month, or maybe a little bit later. Like we'll see how it plays out, because as they end up pointing out later in the newsletter, like the models are done, but they're not like completely textured. And I'm not sure if they are animated at all either, of course. Right. So I'm kind of guessing they want them to be more like done, you know, before they show them off. But I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm really happy to hear that, like, you know, last month they're like, all right, next up, Darkmer.
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, Darkmer's pretty far along.
Darkmer's done. Yeah. And they've got that list of which ones are coming in order. And I don't remember which ones are next, but we could go back and look that up. But is it the Archive next? I'm excited.
It's either next or the following one, but I'm pretty sure
the day after tomorrow. Yeah. Well, here's the thing is that they announced, or they said in the newsletter, the beginning of swimming implementation. So maybe they do this kind of together. That'd be kind of a cool thing, would be to do like a reveal stream where they get the Darkmer models, you know, even if the animations and the rigging maybe aren't fully there yet, they could sort of pose them, you know, I don't know, or do something with regard to the swimming implementation to show them sort of cool together, you know, as a reveal stream. They kind of just go together, right? So,
you know, that's actually a great point. Like I'm guessing that they'll start with humans as far as like animations.
Right.
But it makes even more sense why they're doing Darkmer right now, considering, you know, parallel work is being done on swimming. So it would be awesome if they use that to showcase, you know, maybe the difference between animations of a human and a Darkmer. I would love to see those things kind of all come together, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like the models are done, doesn't necessarily mean they're animated and stuff yet. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So another one that they highlighted was the enhanced aggro systems. I want to spend a minute on here because this is interesting. So if we look at the whole classes and combat part on the roadmap, I just read the bullet points. The first one is initial implementation of diversified aggro types, and in brackets, sight, sound, scent, etc. And then it goes on to talk about rebalancing some of the stuff. I won't read all those. It did talk about some of the effects of the Constitution and Wisdom attributes, and we dived into those a few shows ago.
It makes me so sad. Constitution no longer gives resistance, right? That makes me a bit sad, because I loved the idea of Constitution being such a oomphy stat.
If I remember correctly, Constitution was doing a lot of work. It was doing a lot of jobs. If I remember. So maybe they decided that was too much. Don't know. They said Wisdom now provides a bonus to spell precision. So,
that's very interesting.
Spell precision. And then they also adjusted the starting attributes, growth rates, and the health mana pools for various races and classes. So just some tweaking and some rebalancing and stuff. But let's talk about this diversified aggro types and the enhanced aggro systems they referenced. So it kind of made me laugh, because they were just talking about this on Parting the Veil, right? With regard to taming, you know, they were talking about like, how will the creatures detect you? It might be maybe scent, maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Desert. As always, please, maybe I got this wrong. But have they ever talked about this from a like just a combat standpoint with regard to like aggro, with regard to regular creatures, not for taming purposes, but just for combat purposes?
You know, I can't just like bring something up right now because I didn't look it up ahead of time. I'm pretty sure they have noted that they want to have more than one aggro type in the past. But I in this case, like a lot of things in development, you know, it could just be a prerequisite for the taming stuff, but also affect other things that are, you know, more immediate, like, you know, in the foreground. Because again, Parting the Veil stuff is far out things, not alpha ready, right? So
right, but this seems to like put a little bit of fog on top of that, because maybe there is stuff in there that is part of other systems that are in development or are in active development. This being an example of that. That's the way I read it anyway. That's the way I was sort of like, it sort of hit me, I guess.
But like, so while this might feed into the taming system, I don't think it means they're necessarily working on the taming system. You know, okay. I think that it's aggro. Like they want to flesh out their aggro system, because if they're working on the aggro system, may as well, like, you know, they're getting that done. And so when they do move to the taming system, the foundation is already set, you know, like that part of the system is already ready. And it also means in the meantime, they can apply that to non-taming things because again, it's aggro. So
yeah,
I will say like, I'm really glad that they're putting a lot of thought into aggro right now. Just, you know, not to go into any specifics, but
I know where you're going with it.
But yeah, I maybe I'll compare it to Embers Adrift.
That's
because
I was thinking.
Oh, good. Because it's very easy to get trained in Embers Adrift, and they just made a change to try to improve that, right? But it was an obvious problem. It's so frustrating to like constantly be getting trained, and get aggro for not doing anything. And so I hope that as they're working on aggro systems, they like keep that in mind, right?
Mm-hmm. I just had this wild sort of thought that, like, you know, if all these things, sight, sound, and scent, all play into you getting aggro, you know, what if there's a train running by and they've aggroed based on the person's sight, but you have some sort of like overwhelming scent, and so they peel off onto you because of your scent. Like, you have to take into account all these things.
Wolves chasing some dude that's trying, like, you know, training past you. And you guys just smell like meat or something. They
smell blood. Off. Yeah. What if you're covered in blood and they're like, they react more to the scent of blood than they do to their visuals. So maybe they are more keen to peel off onto you.
Oh my gosh, anyway.
Man. Yeah. So it's a fun idea. You know, and I want to voice a little bit of a gripe here, I guess, just because this is all about combat. There's nothing in the updated roadmap this month about the classes.
Oh,
I would like to hear about the warrior and the paladin. I think those are the two that they said were happening after the cleric. A little bit, you know, the cleric happened in the last PA test, and then nothing in the roadmap.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, man. Because I mean, I'm sure things may have gotten juggled around or something, but it is kind of odd to just not see them on there still. Since like even when they were just, you know, in the queue, so to speak, they left it on the roadmap just to say, hey, these are lined up. So I mean, I don't think their absence means they aren't anymore, but it is a bit curious.
Yeah. Curious is right. I think that's the right word for it. And I think that there was some talk, you know, about, you know, hoping to get some more results from the PA test in terms of like some class specific issues. Or
the next test they said is gonna have to do with, seems like, combat tuning and class tuning.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in the first part of the producer's letter.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of then. Okay, good. And then let's move on to the next part, the network overhaul in terms of what's updated. There's nothing really too new here. They did, you know, vinyl is in and it's working. Of course, there's some post-vinyl functionality issues that they're dealing with. So I don't really have much to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, the one updated thing I would say is like they're talking about rendering entities at further distances. And that's kind of always something I really appreciate. Just because it's nice to be able to see players like off in the distance, right? Just kind of doing their thing, or mobs. Obviously, you want to see mobs that are far away so that you are interested in them or are able to avoid them. So like, I think that's worth noting. But yeah, the rest of it's kind of just the same that we keep seeing, which is just like the checklist of kind of the final things to tie up with vinyl.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll read the bullet point just so we have it 100%. What they said, it says improved entity culling parameters to support faster rendering of entities at further distances. So yeah, great point. I want to see as far as I can see too.
Oh yeah.
It also goes to, just in terms of seeing things not only at distance, but locations. So maybe there's a mob.
Entities is a pretty broad term, right? So
yeah. I'm not sure if it applies to just mobs or whatever, but maybe other stuff too. The next one is under the climbing and swimming part of the roadmap. The only thing I noted here was that there is now a breath bar and suffocation mechanics are now in the game. Oh, when I read this, all I can hear is like the sound of like gurgles and bubbles, coming to the surface.
What is it? The labyrinth from Sonic. And you just hear the like whatever the sound is.
I was a Nintendo kid. I can't relate to your Sonic reference. I'm sorry.
But I am kind of assuming that, this sounds straight up like the new endurance bar. But also, suffocation mechanics, like could this just be, literally just your breath gets to 0, you start taking health damage. Like maybe that's all it means. Because technically that's a mechanic, but hey, maybe it's more than that. And hopefully we'll hear about it or see it, as they work on swimming more. So
some games have done it a little differently, but it's generally like sort of across the board. Usually they're pretty much the same. Like you run out of your endurance and then you start taking, like you say, health damage and then you die. Sometimes there's a little bit more of a grace period. Who knows how they're going to work it out? But with the Wellpond being as deep as it is, maybe that plays into how they do it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I do not expect people to be free diving all the way down the Wellpond. There's gotta be
trained divers who have like been training their whole lives to hold their breath for 5 minutes or something like that. Okay, so then on the next part, this is a big section where they talked about zones, player models, NPC models, and general 3D assets. One of the things I noted in here is they have, completed birch tree models. Is that the new flora that they're talking about earlier?
I would think so, right?
Yes, it seems like a likely coincidence that it's actually more specific here.
And we'll probably see more tree types and other flora as time goes on.
Sure.
Obviously I can't wait to see them in game because I've voiced my opinion about the current ground cover. Like it's just really basic, compared to, I'll say it. Compared to what we saw in Fairthale, the ground cover is very, very basic and sparse. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that they can at least get back to that level with their in-house setup. But
but not every area. Like Fairthale is a type,
especially
right?
lush,
It's
so maybe
especially lush
isn't that lush, but
agreed. Yeah. But I take your point anyway. So the other part with regard to animations, they talked about completing skinning and rigging for Darkmer female. We talked about this. Initiated skinning and rig for the Darkmer male, and first pass of human swimming locomotion. So you pointed that out earlier. So there's a lot of stuff here. Although like I said, not all of it's ground shaking, and nothing too much more for me to point out here that I want to say. Like I said, maybe we could get a little bit more of an update in terms of classes specifically on the roadmap would be my only suggestion. They do tend to get lost in the shuffle sometimes, but anything more on the roadmap does here for you?
Not really. I think we went into pretty much every little detail, right? And for the classes, it's really hard to know whether they just forgot to throw it on there. But hey, I would assume it's still in progress. If not, maybe they'll say something, or maybe we'll just see it pop up again, next month. Yeah. But I would love to see the warrior on there, just in name at least.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the next section of the
Man.
newsletter because this was really fun. So we talked about this last week about they were doing some memories of the pre-alpha testing that
Actually,
they
okay.
asked people to
So
submit.
before we even get into the nice fuzzies with this, I want to address something that I've seen in a couple places now.
What's up?
Who knows if these folks watch our show, but so there's a few people on this list of folks they asked, to give their opinions on PA. Well, I think there's like 3 of them are content creators. Of, how like 12? I don't know. There are like a lot of names on the list. But like 3 of them are content creators, and some people are writing this whole section off because some of the folks are content creators and they're biased or whatever to like say good things.
What?
And I've got to tell you, like I can't give you access to all the same things, but content creators are often exceptionally critical. So just to like throw that out there before we get into these accounts, it's like, no, they just asked us what, what we thought a good story. They asked us for stories, right? And people gave their stories. Like, it's really that simple. So just take it for what it is, don't look into it like crazy. The fact is we had a PA test and some people had memories, and we can get into that now, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't even see that. Honestly, Desmond, I didn't even see that pushback, that conversation. That's beyond ridiculous to me. I mean, if you're a content creator for Pantheon, it's because you're passionate about the game. It's like, unless you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And if 3 of the people on this list are content creators, I mean, that's not even the majority. I mean, I don't get that rationale at all. So, whatever it is,
people are gonna have all sorts of reasons to be upset, right? But
sure,
just throwing it out there that we don't pad. What's the phrase? Like we don't pull our punches, when it comes to feedback. But this was just a fun thing.
Yeah, and if you feel that way, I mean, you just heard us talk about the newsletter, and we both had some critiques, and we both had some concerns, and we've said our thing about the co-stream. Like, like, what do you want us to do? You want us to completely slam the game for tiny little things and make a big deal out of molehills? Like, I'm not going to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, let's get on to the memories here, because
these are so good.
This is a fun section. So I did submit one. That shot with the moons was mine, and I really enjoyed sort of like, just I wanted to bring that lore perspective to this because I didn't know if anybody else would, and I'm glad that it was in there, and I was very honored to have that included.
It was very theric.
Yeah, I saw that in Discord. Somebody says very theric. I'm like, good. I take that as a compliment. The next one was kind of a cool one, and I picked the ones out. I'm not going to read all of them, but there are a few that I wanted to highlight because I thought that they sort of like gave a little insight actually into what the
there were some NDA nuggets in here that they let fly.
There definitely was. So that's what we're going to try and bring to you here. Is this one's from Tulak, and I'm just going to read it. It said our party had been using testing the climbing mechanic to occasionally drop aggro to avoid wipes. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit because this is a long quote, but he says at one point we tried to while fighting one of the undead spirits which had a teleport skill. So they got on the rock. They tried to climb up the rock to get to a resting ledge that was low, and they got onto it. A couple of them got onto it. However, one of the times the spirit decided to teleport onto the ledge to finish them off as they were trying to escape, basically. And so, it kind of sucked in the moment, they say, but they do appreciate it when the game finds a way to fight back against players trying to cheese their way through the game. Yeah. So the question there, and we've heard this before, is how are mobs going to deal with elevation? How are they going to deal with our ability to climb up structures or rock faces or whatever it may be? So we got a little bit of an answer to that. At least
in this particular instance, because they've already said that like that, the final version of that, like that's going to be coming, down the way, and it's probably not going to be the same. Like this teleports like kind of like whatever. They had something. And of course, PA testers are going to try to cheese however they can, right? I mean, it's kind of why we're there, right? But in this case, this is like a really rudimentary thing, but it shows they're thinking about it.
Yeah, very, very mindful of it, right? This next one's from Logic, and they started out by just sort of, seeing how much they enjoyed the experience. They said, big bear, dragons, ghouls, and trolls. Overall, it was an amazing experience. And then they go on at the end to basically talk about how there was a lot of death. There was a lot of death going on, and they had to do a bunch of corpse runs, apparently, having those FML moments, where you're just hating everything, and you're like, but then they realized, the idea here being, if you're not over leveled, you shouldn't follow the trail of dead bodies.
Oh man, and yes, there was a lot more death than I think anyone anticipated.
The trail of dead bodies really sort of resonated with me, because that was definitely a thing.
Dude, you know what's so funny though is that if you read all these responses, like I think it cracks me up that like a lot of them seem to have to do with like, well, they seemingly have to do with the same location. So
that's right.
If you
totally
read these recaps, it's like a lot of them are definitely talking about the same place.
Yeah. It was a memorable moment. It was a lot of trauma from that very, very spot. This next one, I was more impressed with the screenshot than what was said. I know you've got some comments on the narrative of it, but this wide screen shot, this wide angle shot from Sendoku Games, I think that's how they say it. Beautiful, beautiful widescreen shot. If you have like a nice monitor, you want to put that up on there, make a great background.
Yeah.
I didn't write down the narrative, but you've got a note here about that, Des.
Well, yeah, one thing I appreciate about this is that their narration of, well, actually, again, it seems to be the same, the same area, the same situation.
Some common themes,
was especially well done. It was very wonderfully comedic, I would say, and I really, really enjoyed kind of how they juggled their way out of that. It was, I think, a great example of, a little bit of kind of Pantheon, what it might have to serve up. One fun thing about the screenshot though is one thing that they noted in this last newsletter was that they, the roadmap. I mean, they did some more improvements on the weather. So this might actually be a bit outdated, even though it looks quite good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe this is a lesser version of what now it looks like. So, I mean, just looking at this, though, I really like that shot. The next one was from Durant. So just looking at the picture kind of says it all. You don't even need to read the context, because there's the deadly trio on the screen of the woodland spider, the young black bear, and the diamond head viper. And what one of the things Durant says in here is quote, think twice about blindly running around. Now, let me just say, I definitely experienced the same thing with my group. We need to get more acclimated and accustomed to not just charging through the grass and hoping that, I'll see whatever I can see when I get there. Like, please be open to learning that the world is dangerous. I really like
yes,
that takeaway from this.
And like I said, I think a lot of people were not anticipating having to be careful.
Personally, can attest.
Judging by, oh man, I wish we had some screenshots of other things.
For sure. I do too. Now, this next one's my favorite. I don't know which one of these was your personal favorite, Des, but this one's from Nathan Napalm, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's basically his idea was to get his group up to, he saw a place up high on a mountain top somewhere, and his idea was get my group to figure out how to get up there. Come hell or high water, whatever we got to do, we're going to get up there. And so that their whole goal was to find out what was lying at the top of this cliff, whatever it was. And I wish I had thought of this, because it sounds like so much fun. Basically, he says, they communicated, they tried to find the path, they tried to get better at climbing, skill up their climbing to get there. And he says, this is what it's about. He says, this is what Joppa was talking about on Parting the Veil. If you can see it and you can get there, or you can find a way to experience it in some capacity.
I mean, you did leave out the part where there was a dev at the top making fun of them.
I did leave that out. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, this doesn't surprise you. I mean,
No,
it didn't
not at
surprise
all.
me.
Not at all. But
We saw a little bit of
this
that.
is incredibly frustrating to me because I know exactly where this is, and I'm frustrated that I was not able to accomplish what it seems that their group was able to. And so,
And next time, me and you are going to group up next time. We weren't grouped this time. And me and you,
dynamic duo.
we're doing this. Dynamic duo, Batman and Robin. We're doing it. Let's go. Speaking of you and your stardom, your fame, this final shot in this section of the newsletter was awesome. Look at this beautiful chaos that you're seeing on the screen right now. I'm going to make sure these discussions are lined up with the pictures because it has to. But this is beautiful. Again, lots of people, lots of names on the screen here. Before we get to the names, though, I want to point out like these shrieks, and I'll get you to sort of like comment on this, but like, I hope those aren't final models. They look a little Project Gorgony to me.
Oh,
I mean, they're clearly not.
I mean, yeah, I don't think these are final models. I would stretch myself to say I don't think they're final models. I'm pretty sure they're placeholder store assets. Like a lot of stuff is, probably still. Hopefully I'm not wrong and I just offend one of the artists, but yeah, I honestly don't think they look up to the standard VR is going for. So I'm pretty sure that they're just placeholder. They just happen to not be gray box, so they're probably store placeholders.
Right. See, everybody, we're critical. We're critical. Like, come on.
Oh my gosh.
But this is a fun looking scene, and so let's look at some of the names on here, and a couple of them stood out to me. First of all, our friend Sir Medieval is over there on the right side, and if you didn't notice him before, he's there. He actually tweeted out this picture today on his Twitter feed too. I saw that he commented that he was in this picture. Another person I saw was somebody who actually submitted one of the stories that I didn't read, but was a really nice story. It's a Cyendrial. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Anyway, they gave one of the stories that was really a fun one. Our friend Nathan Napalm is in there.
Yep.
And I'm kind of curious now. What's your take? Is that him in the fancy armor? Because that is a
Nathan.
Did he get some dev?
There's something going on here. There's definitely something going on here. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, and I'm disappointed, but I can't say anymore.
Oh boy. Well, we'll have to leave it a mystery for now. And then you're in the picture, Desrin. Look at you right in the middle.
It's so funny. I actually didn't see myself when I looked through this the first time. And then I looked through it again when I saw Sir Medieval be like, hey, look, it's me. And I like took another sweep through. I'm like, I thought I was in, a part of this. And that's a part of this, I guess, would be a way to put it. Because chaos is definitely right. It looks
like you've got 3 mobs attacking a whole bunch of different players. Like you see people there's somebody casting the Fear of the Living.
Insanity, absolute insanity. Yeah. And this is just a piece of a situation. and one that I hope to be able to share someday. But the context of this is even better than the screenshot itself.
Well, I'll stop torturing you by teeing you up and not letting where you're not allowed to actually talk about it, and I'll stop teeing you up for it. So, it was these are great. I love these. I hope they do more of this stuff like this. That's our wrap up of the newsletter. We've been talking about this for almost 50 minutes already. That's crazy. I had no idea. Gone so quickly, but let's leave it there for our VR news for the week and shift over and quickly show you what's going on with us over here at Pantheon Plus. This calendar that you're seeing, it should say October 31st through to November 6th. Hopefully I have a corrected one in time to put it together for the show. Looking at it, we see, of course, Monday's CryptFox is streaming on his Twitch channel, doing some Dead by Daylight. Now, Tuesday this week, coming up, we are still playing Ember's Drift for the MMO 101 and 201. Now, the 101 is going to be on Sparrow's Twitch channel, which you'll find linked in the comments, because Drac is on vacation, so he deserves a little time off, of course. Yep. So Sparrow's going to be hosting the 101 on her Twitch channel.
Drac's off to the academy. He needs to learn how to cast some spells.
Maybe he heard about Nathan's adventure and was like, I need to get up to my tower. Somebody's invading my tower. But
I wanted to make a Embers Adrift joke there. But
yeah.
I think even when he comes back, he's still not going to be able to cast any spells.
He's in search of magic. The quest for magic. Drac is on the quest for magic. On Wednesday, a new chapter in Ben and I's fan fiction. This one's part of the Amonsol's Focus series, and it's called Bloodlust. Very excited for that. I love his fan fiction. I can't wait to read that. And so check that out. That'll be out on our website at pantheon.plus. Thursday night, we are back for Embers Adrift with me and you, Des, and our friends Stans, Sarah Avienda, Tetsu, and Muujin. We had a great time this week. So much fun. Yeah. We recovered a corpse, which was always fun to do. Although we left it as a hanger, and maybe just so everybody knows who watched.
We got it. We got it.
We did get Tetsu's corpse. He's safe and sound. Don't worry. Friday, our friend Redbeard Flynn is doing a video about New World with their update, and it says new player, new world. So
dude, I'm even looking forward to this. I want to see it.
Yeah, maybe he'll convince us to try it again. Go back to it. We'll see.
Oh wow.
Saturday is Cringe Pony TV, as always, on Nathan Napalm's YouTube channel. That's at midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Central. And then I want to mention one more thing I want to mention. You're listening to this, if you're here for the premiere, you're listening to this on Sunday. And I am working on a video that I am hoping to have out and done for Sunday evening in Halloween spirit. It is called The Secrets of Sevil. So there's been some questions about, deeper lore connections with the Sevil stuff that we saw, the Sevil Manor. I've done it. It's in the works. It's going to be hopefully done for Sunday. So hopefully enjoy that. And we'll leave it there for this week's VR News and Notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. Okay, Community Spotlight time. We actually only have a few kind of videos, actually only videos this time around. But I figured this time, in absence of a community discussion, maybe we could linger on the last one a bit. But let's get started first. The first one, long anticipated. Sir Medieval video. This is his lore video, or the first lore video. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen MMORPG lore series. The Keepings of Castigue Part 1 Dragon Accord. Dude. Did you get to watch this?
I did. It's really, really good. It's Keepings of Castigue, as far as in terms of the way I've pronounced it. I did call it Castigue at one time, but then I heard Jan say
I know.
Castigue.
See, I've been saying Castigue, but then the last few times I've heard it, it's been Castigue, and I'm going to have to get to the bottom of this because for some reason Castigue is better in my head, but I was trying to be right.
Well, somebody needs to do like a lore words pronunciation. Hey, maybe I'll do something.
Yeah,
like that.
help us out, Jan.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. No, I watched it. It's really good. And he even did another video. I don't see it noted here, but I'll mention it where he was working on the voice for the dragon for Tel Narcissus, the snow dragon.
Yeah, the little short. Yeah,
it was like a short. It was really cool. I mean, he's putting in work on these things.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of effort going into it. And I mean, this first part's just, it's like 4 minutes and something. It's not that long because the first letter is very short. But all that, when he gets to part 3, I loved the Chris Kane version. It's going to be great.
It's a high bar. That Chris Kane version is amazing. And part 3, the Night of Five Voices it's the biggest and best part of this series the Keepings of Castigue. Yeah, really, really amazing.
Yep. So looking forward to that. But that first one is up to catch up on. And the next we've got 2 bits from Mr. BazgrimTV. First one, Pantheon Rise of Fallen puts new network to the test. And this is the Baz Flash episode 49. Of course, quick recap as he does, 60 seconds, kind of real quick, getting everybody up to speed. Those are super nice. And they fit nicely into shorts now. So it just works out. But he also has another one. And this is another watch party, kind of. And it's funny because there's now enough content that it seems like Baz is really liking just kind of hanging out on stream, watching through a thing, and commenting on it. It's a great format for him, and so it's pretty cool. But this is
it seems like his community, or the community the Bazgrim people watch. They enjoy it quite a bit, and they've been really enjoying it. He does like a bingo with it too. So
yeah. But yeah, this is regarding the title is Reviewing Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen's adventuring items and abilities. So as you can guess, this has to do with the recent Parting the Veil. So it's like kind of a belated watch party, but it's great. It's Bazgrim. He knows a lot.
He does. He's the master.
Okay, and here we are. We get to our friends, the Disparate Worlds. And this is for their main feature podcast. They are going to be doing a lot more stuff in the future, but this is episode 39, Peeing in the Wellpond. Wild's End and Sevil Manor in Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. And I had this thought, because we're going to kind of talk about a little bit what they're talking about. My thought is like, so we do a podcast, they do a podcast. We're both like two people, and I feel like we should make this like a rivalry.
Sure. A friendly rivalry. It's always fun.
That's where we catch their videos and then we respond to it and tell them they're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. They weren't. But they had some great points here. And the first thing to kind of point out is Mox's the more Pantheon side of the equation. He was maybe pushing that NDA a little bit, but I saw Minus in the comments and said it was great. So I'm going to say they get a pass. For you, man.
Yeah, I think so too. I was listening to it. I was like, I wish that's an interesting point. I'd love to make that point. He did. He totally but I say this having what we just talked about through this show. We maybe pushed a little bit of the boundaries, although maybe I don't know if we did or not. I don't know what you think.
Yeah.
So all's fair in love and war.
But in the end, he said it.
We do take NDA seriously, and they do too.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. It's harmless, So I think it's probably fine with them. But so there's that. That's really fun. But then Sakari brings up this kind of good point, and this is kind of where we start with our little discussion. Is Sevil Manor, how it's kind of a trope. Obviously people are looking back to like unrest and I was thinking of Hillsbury Manor, and just. It's a bit of a thing that's been done a lot of times. And so Sakari's kind of criticism or apprehension is that like they really need to show something that really like differentiates it too. So it's it's not just a nostalgia thing. It's got to offer something more than just this typical haunted house. Yeah.
So, I mean, I was listening to this, and as I was listening to it, I had to stop myself because I'm like, there is more. And I just, when you see the video I referenced earlier, The Secrets of Sevil, this is exactly what I did. Yeah. You will see more. There is more to the story. The thing with VR, the way they do it is that they don't want you to know everything. So they're gonna give you a basic premise. They're gonna give you like a setup, a scene, and then they're going to let you discover all the angles of it. Because right now, what they told us about Sevil Manor is very much one angle on it. Now, there is definitely more. Whether my theory crafting is right or not is another question. But when you see the video that I'm talking about, you're going to see that there's potentially more to it. Yeah. So I know what Sakari's saying, and I agree with him 100%. It's not that I disagree with him. It's that I think what he wants is actually in the game.
Oh yeah, I have confidence that is the case as well. But I absolutely get the apprehension, and I don't think he was much of a EQ person. But my apprehension would be, hey, if we just start seeing this is the Pantheon version of Mistmore Castle, or that would actually get old. There are some tropes that you can redo. I'm sure they could make a Mistmore that actually suits the game a little better. But if they just continuously do that, it would get old. Fact is, though, this is kind of the first that I can recall that is something that we can immediately relate to, like, oh, it's like Unrest, you know?
Well, I will say Sorhirith is very Kelethan, you know?
Oh my gosh. I guess, yeah, it's a trope, but at the same time, it's, first of all, it's halflings.
Yes, different race.
Different race. Second of all, it's a trope that's been through so many different iterations, right?
But this goes to what Mox said on their podcast. He said tropes are only bad. It's not whether they're inherently bad, it's how they're executed, right?
Right.
So if you do a trope well, people are going to love it. Look at he said, and he was talking about the hero archetype, the hero story. He's 100% right. That is the foundation for almost every fantasy story ever written. And, you know, they're all just variations on it, to be honest. And there's like, what are they going to do? I mean, somebody might say the Wellpond. If they were to put a dungeon at the bottom of the Wellpond, is that Kedge Keep? You know,
dude,
like,
and I'm sure people would draw that conclusion, right?
Sure. We gravitate to what we know. We would have the familiar, but it's in the details. That's where things get drawn into their own space and become their own thing, is in the details. And so when I do these lore videos and when you look into the lore and read them, like Sir Medieval is with the keepings, you realize that there's the uniqueness lies in the ingredients. So.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I didn't even have this in my notes, but when I watched the Sir Medieval video, I kind of scrolled down because I noticed like the video didn't get as many views as like his usual, which made me kind of sad, right? Fortunately, you know, there's a bunch of people in there that are like, please keep this series going. So I hope, you know, and I'm sure he's put a lot of work into it. So he's probably going to keep doing it. But one of the things, one of the comments was like, you know, I'm enjoying this, but the lore seems really basic. And I'm like, oh my gosh. What? Like, I'm like, if you're just dipping your toes in, like, okay, like, I get it, but trust, brother.
Listen, we're playing Embers Adrift right now, and I'm actually trying to get the lore and understand the lore of that game. And I'm not criticizing them, but I cannot find for the life of me what the name of the world is, the planet that we're on in Embers Adrift.
Oh, like, man.
Either it's not revealed in the intro lore, which is fine, and I'm not like, it would be hypocritical for me to say it's not there because maybe it's deeper in. Maybe you have to explore the world more but the name of the planet,
like, just what people call what they're standing on, like that. That is a fundamental thing that should not be hidden because everyone refers to something, right?
And look, I've been playing video games for many, 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 many years. This is not basic lore. This is some of the deepest lore you're ever going to find in any video game, hands down, period. You just got to look for it, and you got to dig and you got to read.
Okay. Well, one of the other things on this note, before I move on, was he specifically was like, I don't want, you know, he tells kind of the typical trope of the haunted house, and, you know, people did a bunch of evil stuff and then they got, you know, kicked out or you know, killed for treason or whatever. And now the house is, you know, a bunch of ghosts are around. And the first thing it made me think of, man, is like, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that because wraiths and banshees, how are those made in Terminus, Theric? Like, there's actually backstory even on why ghosts are in a place.
Yes.
Whether we see that or not.
So,
you know?
So that is sort of where my video wraps up, is with some speculation on the fate of the Sevil family, because the lore about wraiths and banshees ties in. There's a lot of commonalities. There's some similarities between their preferred, how do I say it, like haunts, or how they're created, or where they're sort of emanate from, in terms of what we saw of Sevil Manor. So, you know, like, it connects. I think it connects. Yeah. And Jan may say you're completely out to the left field, that you don't know what you're talking about. But, you know, it's there, and it's there to explore. So
I hope Sakari finds your video well and gets into it, because it's fun road to travel. Now, so next up though, they kind of started to tackle, I would say, the discourse that was going on about the same time, or around the same time as that last dev stream. How, you know, there was just there was a bunch of dumpstering on Pantheon.
Dumpstering is right.
Whether it's the appearance or the progress or whatever. And, so VR happened to release their monthly dev stream, and it showed, concept art and lore and a very much in development location, not final at all. And obviously that's going to hit a certain way, right? Just the timing of that is just so unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the thing is that with Sakari and Moxon, they're comparing and contrasting Pantheon and Ashes of Creation. It really stands out because Ashes does their development. What they do is, what they show is much different than Pantheon. What they show is much prettier than what Pantheon shows. And the idea being here that, you can choose to show really nice, graphics. You can show really nice, beautiful scenes and that kind of stuff, really fancy animations and lots of stuff. Or you can really choose to show and focus on showing the gameplay, the underlying stuff. And so they're on different sort of, not trajectories, but like they're looking at it from different aspects of what would they want to show the community. And Pantheon says it, VR says it all the time. They don't want to show us the best. They don't want to reveal everything.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
They want to show us the underlying stuff. They want to show us why things are the way they are. So we get these newsletters with these bullet points that go into like, lots of technical detail. Ashes doesn't necessarily give that. And I'm not following Ashes as closely, but when they had this conversation, that's all I could think of was like, it's not apples. Like Mox made this point. It's not comparing the same things. It's a different.
It's just a different approach because VR has chosen to take a different route, which is to literally show in development, like what is in development.
Yeah. And I just one more point before I forget, because I'll forget it if I don't say it right now. But like you said, the dumpstering, like if you're only going to pay superficial attention to Pantheon and only look at the graphics, like that's on you. Like that's on you. You're doing a terrible job doing reviewing or whatever you want to call it that you're doing. If that's your whole basis for judgment, saying this looks like terrible, this looks like the worst MMO, like what are you talking about? You have no credibility. You have no ability to evaluate something, and you're just doing it to farm rage. And it's annoying, and I hate it, and it's dumb, and I don't even bother with it.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. I think there is at least a little bit of criticism that we can take, to say that, hey, at first glance, someone that is just finding out about Pantheon, they're probably not getting hooked because of how they're choosing to present this. And we could argue whether or not that's like fine or not, right? But that is probably the reality, is that a lot of the things that are hooking people into like Ashes of Creation, Pantheon's not doing that. And it actually made me think a little bit on Project Fairthale. And I'm gonna throw this out there, because the Project Fairthale approach, what it seems like, they were trying to do like kind of a vertical slice, like, hey, we're going to kind of finish this as much as possible. And then, that's kind of going to be our platform for like, hey, this is what the game's like. And they did some streams in Project Fairthale, right? And it looked pretty freaking good. But I really feel like they have chosen to not do that now. Like, I feel like that is a pretty distinct decision. Because the big flub in our community is that Project Fairthale didn't work out, right? Something had to change, and they made that hard choice. And what I love to compare and contrast is Pantheon via Project Fairthale, which was kind of making the game look more complete than it is, in a way, versus other games that show pretty things, and it gives you the impression that the game is further along than it is. But then VR has kind of decided, you know what, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we actually show them what the game development, like what the game actually looks like what we're actually working on, as a somewhat novel approach. And the biggest example here, so they brought this up actually, was they showed some concept art for the Wellpond. and it's a very well-known piece now, right? Because it's a kind of an inspiring piece. But that was actually shown in September 2021. That's over a year ago. However you listen to this podcast, but that's over a year ago now. But the thing is, they showed that concept art, and then they showed this, which is still pretty early on. And a lot of people in their heads are thinking, wow, that's really slow progress, right? Like, and I couldn't find the exact quote here, but when they, they're talking about the new hires for their art teams and stuff. At one point, I think they were talking about how they had one person that ended up working on this, Wellpond, or while they're working on Wall's End, but they actually talked about, hey, where our focus right now is on Thronefast and Aventur's Pass, if I remember right. And so most of their resources are on that. And they have this one guy that he didn't spend, or he or she, whoever's working on it, didn't spend an entire year working on this, fairly basic, Wellpond thing. And it's just that context seems to be lost on people that are so used to following other projects that show basically what the finished product is. But it's like, someone just running around in this very nice looking, very finished looking zone, where Pantheon's like, that's maybe not the honest way to go about it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, it's funny that the honest approach is the novel approach, as you put it, right? What a world we live in, where the honest approach is the novel approach. That is why I'm here. That's why I'm here, because I know nonsense when I see it. Like, I know there's so much cover up when it comes to like disguising a bad game with pretty graphics and things that look great. And I know when a team like VR has the confidence to show us something that, and Mox made a good point, or I remember which one of them was, but talking about the Wellpond and the textures being sort of repeated and sort of samey all the way down. That's a good point. That's true. I agree with that. But I know that they're confident enough to show us that and say, look, this is where we're making progress. We're developing the game. Just because this looks the way it is right now. And they even showed it without the diffusion, the light diffusion going on. Right. Confidence to show us something like that. Whereas another project may, you may see the most beautiful Unreal Engine 5 scene, but none of it works. None of it's in game. Like, none of it would actually be playable at this point. Like, it just doesn't, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that drives me crazy. And that's why I believe in, that's why I believe in these kinds of development updates as opposed to the other way of doing it. I don't need to be tricked with fancy graphics. I can intelligently look at it and say, this is either working or it's not, or they're making progress or they're not. And then you get these, these sort of, whatever concept or content creator people that just do it for the laughs, right? It's like, it looks like crap. It's for laughs. Ha ha ha. Let me get, all my views and be done with it.
And well, that's kind awful. Of my takeaway at this point is like, it's the same thing. We get the same two things, right? Pantheon's been in development for 8 years. And it looks like this. Those are like, those are the two criticisms. That's all they got. And just the fact that that's all that's been repeated for like over and over and over again. And that VR is still deciding like, hey, we're just going to show actually like what is in progress, at whatever stage. I mean, I'd love to see some more finished stuff, but like, I don't need to. I just want to see progress. Like, hey, okay, you did some work on this. You did some work on this. Okay, awesome. So it's kind of like folks, dumpstering because, they watched a video where they're showing something that's like, not even halfway done, and taking that to be as what the game is going to be released as. It's like, it's almost it's almost a confirmation that VR is doing what they're doing, like, correctly. Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you only want to see the final version of something, then tune out. Tune out, because you're not going to, like, this is not what VR is doing. If it makes you unhappy to see a work in progress and you're going to make final judgments based on that,
just come back in a couple of years. Like,
get the hell out of here.
Oh my gosh, Derek.
Sorry, but it makes me angry because I feel like a lot of people can't help themselves, and it becomes this conversation, I don't even want to give them the time of day or a name drop at all, because I just feel like it is so bad it's bad for the game, and it's bad for the community, and it's bad for everything. It doesn't help anybody except them.
Well, I'm going to start taking it as a compliment now, to be like, you know what? Yeah, they are showing something that looks pretty garbage, because they are confident. Like they know that it's not going to look like garbage forever, and they're more focused on, the game actually being designed well. Imagine that. And so it's kind of like, yeah, okay, you could say that. If those are your two criticisms, like, maybe I'm just jaded or desensitized, right? It's like, oh yeah, I've been hearing that for ages. But what's so funny is we see this as, and I don't want to linger on this too long, but we're, as content creators, we have a pretty good view of like the community, how it like wanes and waxes, right? Because it's, I would say it's still steadily growing, but there's definitely some parts where it's like, wow, it's kind of like fallen off a little bit. And then, oh, wow, they release something that happens to resonate with more people. And, oh, hey, we got, definitely an influx. But when I really started like going after Pantheon was when they were starting to show that pretty stuff, so many people that are still in the community today started following in 2016, 2017, when they were really leaning into the visual side. And I'm sure a lot of them are not following now because they're, it seems like a backstep, but it's a proven situation. It's like they saw that they were seeing success with showing something that wasn't true, or at least not, but a perfect indicator of where the game's at, and are like, you know what, that works, but it's not honest, and it's not going to get us to release any faster. So
and I'm honestly, there's an important distinction to make here, and that's the people who are just looking at it and saying like, oh, okay, I'm going to start following this, and the people who are putting out, have a platform and are putting out, criticism and commentary about it. Those are two different things.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I'm more focused on the latter, because I understand what you're saying, and you're 100% right. Graphics attract people. They get people in and through the door and into your game and following your thing. But adding to the conversation, adding to the greater discourse via some sort of platform is a different thing. And you need to have, I've said it before, you have a responsibility to be intelligent about it. And I feel like that's not happening sometimes.
Well, anyway, thank you, Disparate Worlds, for kind of getting your thoughts in there on this and kind of sparking us to maybe have a bit of a rant, I guess. I know it's so funny people still like ask for rants, right? But this is definitely a subject that we're pretty passionate about, as content creators, and just because like we care about these things and the environment that we're in as content creators, and we're not. Obviously, we see everything that goes on, every criticism, and I think I would like to think, at least, that we can move forward, first of all, and even Minus used to say this, is like, be optimistic, right? It's okay to be optimistic, and we are optimistic and obviously critical, and I hope that resonates with more people over time than just having big, opinions and obviously trying to influence people. Like, we're not trying to influence people, we're just being like, hey, this is what's going on and this is what we think about it. And
well, we got to be honest. We have to be honest. If we're not saying how we actually feel, then we're not really, adding anything of value to the discourse.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for sticking with us. and I really want to get to this next section. So I think that's going to be it for this week's Community Spotlight.
Sit back and relax. It's time for the lore you know. All right. need some lore time to debrief a little bit. Let's talk some lore. And we ran our first lore keeper questions of the week last week, and we have 2 lore keepers of the week who you're seeing on the screen right now. So congratulations to them for answering the questions last week, and I was very impressed with them and their answers. So they definitely got it right. I'm going to give you the answer because the question was, who is the ruler of Thronefast? Well, here's the quote and the second question was, what event led to them becoming the ruler of Thronefast? Here's the answer from the lore. Quote, Amenthiel, the Lady King, is a true blood heir of Avendir, who has shown traits of her ancestors' character and composure, since the horrifying catastrophe at Azarus took the life of her husband as well as her predecessor to the throne. Amenthiel's nerve and shrewdness thwarted enemies of a suddenly weakened Thronefast. In his speech, shouted to peasant and wellborn alike, Amenthiel set the course of the nation like a steady captain emerging from the clutches of a maelstrom. While the humans have endured yet another peril, their city glimmers like the ancient crown set upon their fair regent's dauntless brow, for now. So that's the human lore. That's straight from the website. And now here's our questions for this week. So you'll see on the screen. Number 1, what is the name of the halfling city? And number 2, what type of creature do halflings like to hunt? And you know, Desert, just coincidentally,
I wasn't going to say anything.
Some stuff in this episode. You may have a little bit of a little hint in the episode itself. So again, go to pantheonmmo.com, check out the halfling stuff if you want to get your information. Leave a comment on the video, or you can join our Discord. We have a Lore You Know channel in the Pantheon Discord under the Rewind section, and you can join the keepers. And again, hope to get some people doing this, and love that we already had 2. So keep it up, and that is the Lore You Know. All right, Des, another one down, another one bites the dust. So I just wanted to comment how I said this in the intro, I really liked how you talked about the rewind in the newsletter, and to be serious for just a second, I echo your sentiments 100%. I feel like with you, we're just hanging out, talking to a friend about something we're both really into. It's easy, it's relaxing, except for rants, but those are fun tension. At the end of the day, it's a conversation that I love having, and it's a conversation that's, we're closer to being in terminus together, my friend.
Absolutely. Right? And like I said in the notes, it's like, I hope our watchers or our viewers or our listeners or whatever, I hope y'all feel the same. I hope you guys feel somewhat connected to this, and I hope you have other people you can chat with Pantheon about. If not, chat with us. Like, come on, we have a Discord for a reason, right? Meant every word, and I agree. It's easier than I would have thought.
Yeah, it's great, man. I love it. So just remember, everybody, we're doing giveaways next week. So if you want a Black Rose pledge and 2 Watchers pledges, make sure you are subbed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss the premiere, because that's where we're going to be doing it. And remember, there's it's Sunday. If you're listening to the premiere, happy Halloween and enjoy some spooky Pantheon lore tonight with the Secrets of Sevil. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Awesome. See you guys.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.